For Rings of Power, Battle of Eregion is easily the worst ever battle we have ever seen in any show or film. It would be so easy to make yet another video just hating on it. So let's instead try do the impossible and try to fix it. And by doing so, you will know exactly what not to do when writing an epic battle yourself. As the writers themselves had a very small budget of only around $200,000, you will avoid adding anything that was not shown in the episode itself to make it fair. This will prove that simple changes can fix even the worst ideas. But first, what makes a good cinematic battle? The Battle of Helm's Deep, Battle of the Bastards, or your favourite battle all follow 3 rules that make them epic battles. These are clear stakes, good pacing, and consequences. And I will elaborate on these more as we apply them to our own battle here. In the show, the actual battle technically starts in the previous episode, when the orcs start firing the catapults into the city. So we will start there. The first thing we need to do is establish the stakes before anything can even start to happen. Why are the orcs here? And what is their plan? The show just brushes all this under the carpet, believing that Adar wanting to kill Sauron is a good enough explanation, but it's obviously not. As the audience, we are never informed of what will actually happen if this plan is achieved, how it would affect our heroes. Simply put, why should we care? Compare this to Helm's Deep. We spend so long with the women and children because that's what is at stake. The lives of the innocent and the whole kingdom of Rohan. In Amazon's battle, we know only 3 characters by name that are actually in Eregion. And if they are lucky, we care about only one of them, and that's Celebrimbor, and he's not even consciously present throughout this event. So, at the beginning of our battle, we will have Adar talk to his commanders to introduce their goals and stakes for the audience. He will say that they need to conquer the city to steal the Rings of Power, because they need them to kill Sauron. This can then allow the good guys' objective to simply be to prevent this from happening, because orcs with the powers of the rings would be able to conquer the other lands of the free people. Yes, it's simple, and you can probably think of a better motivation, but like I said earlier, we have a limited small budget for this. A further way to develop the stakes is to create a clear picture of the opposing forces and the environment. In Amazon's show, we never know how many orcs there are, how many elves are defending the city, or how the city is even laid out. All we get told is that the wall is weak in one specific part and that there is a river surrounding it. This does not make sense and was only done to replicate the hole in Helm's Deep. So to counter these problems, we will have to make one major change. Remove the mountain range surrounding the city. I know the Amazon writers are clenching their fists right now, but at least make it smaller than they did, as this will help us in the future. We will also have to add a dam somewhere along the river, or even just a stone bridge crossing it. We see all this in a zoomed out shot of the city. Now, we need to know what the actual threat levels are, so we can find out the size of the armies with a simple scout, letting the defenders know that the 500 elven defenders are outnumbered 10 to 1. In this moment, someone would suggest sending a messenger to the dwarves of Khazad-dûm, but Sauron would oppose the idea, as obviously he wants the city destroyed. You could even have someone oppose those orders and send for help secretly, but the dwarves didn't appear in this episode, so they can't appear for us either. Before anything exciting has happened, we now know why this fight is about to happen, what the objectives of the two sides are, the layout of the battlefield, and the size of the two forces. We can now begin. In the original episode, Adar bargains with Elrond halfway through the battle, which is idiotic, and I will explain why in a second. So in our battle, the bargaining will instead happen before the battle begins. Not only because that makes logical sense, but because it would also further develop the stakes and fix the pacing. A battle is just like any other story. It needs an introduction, climax, and end. So when the Amazon writers put their bargaining into the middle of the episode, it vaporized any excitement and any build-up. So in our battle, Adar goes to speak outside the gates, or he even sends a messenger and says that they want to trade Galadriel and the well-being of the city for the rings and Sauron. Well, Anatar, as they don't know he's Sauron yet. He gives them until sunset to hand them over, and then you can even have him say a cringe line like, "I don't want my children to go to war, don't force my hand," as that was his whole vibe this show. He then goes back to his army and tells them to start building all the catapults. This lets the tension slowly grow and simmer as we get closer and closer to the chaos unleashing. The elves will obviously reject this offer, and whilst they are planning on what to do, Eregion returns to Eregion. He lets them know that Elrond and Gil-galad are aware of the attack and are on their way to help. This helps set up their arrival later in the episode, instead of them appearing randomly, and it also gives them the objective to just survive long enough. Eregion then also offers himself to go on a suicide mission to save Galadriel himself, but deep down it's just to get his revenge on Adar. Finally, everything's set up, tension is building, and we can officially begin the battle. The catapults are ready and start firing at the city and its walls. To the elves' surprise, they are much more effective at damaging the walls, so they have much less time than they expected. This introduces us to the pacing that all great battles have. I couldn't find an official term for it, so I will refer to it as the roller coaster pacing, patent pending. What this means is that throughout the battle, the good guys need wins, which would be the highs, that are then responded to by wins for the bad guys, which are the lows. These get bigger and more consequential as the battle progresses. It's meant to be like a boxing match. You punch, then you get punched. And this original episode did none of this. It was just more and more wins for the bad guys with no responses from the good guys, resulting in there being nothing to root for. So in our battle, the elves send out a small platoon to stop the catapults, as otherwise they won't last long. I know some of us might have that problem too. Whilst they attempt this, it gives Eregion enough of a distraction to save Galadriel. Again, the show did do this, but again, they did it at the worst time possible. That's why we are doing it at the start. This is the good guys' first small win. They rescued our hero. However, obviously, due to the sheer number of orcs, the small elf platoon couldn't successfully destroy all the catapults, leaving one or two still firing. This is now the win for the bad guys. With only the 2 catapults left, they focus them on the part of the wall with the most damage. With only a few health points of the wall left, we then go back to Eregion and Galadriel, where they realise how big of a problem this still is. Now, Eregion is left with a choice. He can either go try assassinate Adar in revenge, or he can help the city by destroying the remaining catapults. Galadriel gives him that same speech she does in the show, wasn't as great as the writers thought it was, and it makes him choose his people's safety over revenge. This not only adds something heroic for our main heroes to do, but also provides us with an actual character growth. They barely manage to destroy the catapults and escape. The audience gets that nice warm feeling for a second before we pan back to Adar. I can't think of anything cool he would say, so he just simply says, "It's time for phase 2. Close the dam," or close the river, collapse the river, something along those lines. This is simple and clearly shows what the next micro goal is about to be. The elves notice them closing the dam or destroying the small bridge that was built over the river, as destroying a bridge would make much more sense than destroying full-on mountains and then conveniently blocking the river. The elves realise they are not safe just yet, and they start to man the walls, or I guess, elf the walls, right? I'm no dam expert, but it would take some hours for the water surrounding the city to fully go away. I know this still doesn't make any logical sense, but it's what happened in the show, so my hands are tied. And this universe has magic, so maybe their riverbeds and rivers differ to ours. This small time out also gives us time to go back to Sauron and Celebrimbor and their plot. This manages to slow down the pace and let us catch our breath from the constant action we just had. Now, in the actual episode, once the water is gone, the orcs start charging at the walls whilst they wait for the one small siege machine to breach the wall before Elrond and the cavalry arrive. Quick side note, King Gil-galad is present during the cavalry charge, so why on Middle-earth is Elrond the one leading it? He has no battle experience whatsoever. But anyways, in our battle, they don't have that silly little siege machine. Instead, we actually use the troll that was specifically set up earlier in this season. Also, he's supposed to be the king of trolls, so it's not just him, but a few trolls. Whilst the trolls slowly approach the wall because of how muddy the ground is from the previous river that was upon it, the orcs try to climb the walls with ladders. Due to the sheer number advantage, the elves can't keep up as more orcs are getting onto the walls and the trolls are bashing the damaged wall. Now, let's not forget about rule number 3, consequences. The actions we see need to result in something to help the audience understand the threat our characters are facing. So Eregion has to get killed here. It has to be a big character, and we only have him and Galadriel currently present, and we can't kill Galadriel. So he gets killed by the Troll King, and as he dies, he says he will finally join his lover. I don't remember her name. I bet you don't remember her name either. Him getting killed by the Troll King should also result in the audience now feeling some sort of hate towards him, and we know that our characters are not protected by plot armor. It's now when the cavalry finally arrives. However, they don't announce their arrival with a loud horn, and use their advantage of surprise to hit the orcs from the back. Being attacked on 2 fronts, the defending elves are able to destroy the ladders and slay the orcs that got in. Then we can again go back to Sauron and Celebrimbor whilst we catch a breath again. If you like my ideas of how to fix this battle, do leave me a like, and if not, do leave a comment saying what you would have changed instead or why I'm wrong. Thank you. Going back to the battle, the cavalry progress closer and closer to the city walls, slashing through the orcs with ease, but then the horses start getting stuck in the mud. After all, there was a river here not many hours ago, so this is a consequence of what we have already seen happen. This now makes the advantage of horses useless, and again turns the tide of battle towards the favour of the orcs. As the trained elf warriors battle through the hordes of orcs until they finally reach the trolls, which have now done considerable damage to the wall. All but the Troll King himself turn to fight the elves, whilst he continues breaching the wall. He's now so close to the whole thing crashing down. Now, imagine some cool elf fighting trolls montage here. Then, the Troll King ends up being the final troll left, and all the good guys focus their attacks on him, but with his last breath, he takes a final swing at the wall, and this collapses it onto him. The city is breached. As he killed Eregion earlier, this will hopefully bring some satisfaction to the audience, but this will most likely be countered by the bad guys actually winning. Now, as our characters flee into the city, the episode ends, as that's where the actual episode ended. Well, in the actual episode they capture our heroes, but that makes no sense, so in our version they flee before they get saved by the dwarves later. Now, some side notes which I forgot to add but should definitely be mentioned. The show made it so the orcs burn in sunlight, which they kind of forgot in this episode. So we would have to add a quick scene of them covering the sky with smoke from burning wood to counter this. The trolls also need some sort of explained weak point, as they always seem to take just enough damage to make it exciting before they die in this world. And finally, the actual show had a lot less battle in the episode than I originally remembered. It focused so much time on the dwarves and Sauron, which is a weird choice as this battle was built up to this whole season, and I'm sure that did not help its case. In conclusion, we followed 3 simple rules and ended up having a battle that, to me, at least seemed much more entertaining. We didn't even change much of the original material either, and mainly just reorganised what was already there and cut out the most useless parts. So hopefully you enjoyed this video and learnt something. And if you did,
Some stride, you fools!